Hello, welcome back to my podcast. I've finally managed to record another episode at long last. I've been wanting to do this for ages and I've either not had enough finished projects or I've not been well enough or any number of reasons. So yeah, I'm finally getting around to doing it. I've got a few projects that I have finished that I'd like to show you. A couple of them are going out as gifts as well, so I want to show them to you before they go. So I've got a few lined up here and I've got one ready to show you here as well, and I'm going to crack on and get on with it. So this is a blanket pattern that I'm in the process of writing and I want to get it out as soon as possible because it's quite seasonal, but yeah, again, just time and yeah, getting a chance to do it is a bit of a pain at the moment, but I am going to try and get it done as soon as possible. It's this blanket in autumn colours. The blanket pattern will be called Feels Like Autumn Blanket, and it's got alternating solid granny square and traditional granny cluster stitches all the way, alternating. I really enjoyed making this, not only the pattern, but I really enjoyed like the colours as well. So I think I made this quite fast really for me. So I'm going to show you it standing up, I think, just to show you it properly. So that's the full blanket, and it is finished with, let's put my seat back, it's finished with this border as well. This is always one of my favourite borders to make. It's like a double V stitch, so it has like a natural chevron to it, I guess, and I find it quite easy to do on a granny blanket because it just fits nicely. It doesn't bunch up, it doesn't curl, it's all, I think it comes out quite nice, and the corners a little bit bigger. So that is that one. The yarn that I used is by Wool Warehouse, Yarn Smith's Create DK. In the pattern I'll list the colours that I used as well, if you want to make the same pattern. But yeah, I just really enjoyed making it, and it was, I can get into quite a good rhythm with granny squares as well. So that really helped. And that's it. So that is a upcoming pattern, and I really need to get it released before autumn is over. The air is starting to, well, I don't know about starting to feel autumnal. It does feel autumnal, I think. I went out yesterday to get something like from our big freezer, and yeah, the air just had that crispness to it that I really like. I love autumn. I'm not too keen on winter, mainly because of the darkness, not so much the cold weather, because I find that really cosy. Like you can wrap up warm and you can go for, still go for walks and that. I don't cope well in the heat. So in the UK we get quite humid heat, and I find it just, I don't have much energy anyway with my health issues. So I find that humid heat just saps that energy even further. So I do find the summer really difficult. Even if we don't get a proper heat wave as such, just being alive in the summer is very difficult. So yeah, that's why I love autumn, because I find that there's still warm weather, warm days, but I love the coolness of the evenings, and I love the turning colours as well of the leaves. Yeah, going for autumn walks is like my favourite thing. So and my husband and myself got married in October, so we got married in like my favourite season as well. So it's nice that our anniversary comes round in autumn, and then we usually go out for a walk together, like somewhere special, memorable. Yeah, so we just like to go autumn walks. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. This is the next blanket that I've made. Again, this is actually a written pattern, and there was one thing I needed to change on it that has caused me to stall on releasing it, because I need to get it tested first, really, but because it's slightly more, I wouldn't say complicated, but there are things that I want to make sure I've written properly in the pattern, understandable sort of thing, rather than me thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense, but it makes sense to me and no one else. So I want to make sure that I get it right. But there was just one certain thing when I come to the end of a round, I needed to double check how I explain starting the next round. And it's just that one tiny little thing. It wouldn't take much for me to do it, but what it is, once I've finished a pattern, for me to, I usually write it as I'm going, obviously, because I find it hard to look back at it and say, oh yeah, when I did this row, this is exactly what I did, and write it down. So when I've finished a blanket or, you know, a project, if I need to go back and change something in the pattern or update it, I do find it quite hard to visualise what I did exactly. So what I need to do is like a mini version just to get up to this point that I'm thinking of, compare it against the pattern, and then write it, release it, I should say, to the testers. But this is what it is. Another one that the middle is a granny square with the granny clusters. So we've got right from the middle, granny square. So it's lovely TV crochet, I would say, because you can do it without really thinking. Then you start to make some of these squares, sunburst squares, I think they're called. And these are joined as we go, so you gradually add them all the way around the edge of the blanket. And then we do a little border of some more granny clusters and this shell pattern around the edge as well. And just a nice finishing touch, I think. This again is made with yarn from Wool Warehouse, and they kindly sent me some yarn to try, and I made this pattern from it. The same with the autumn blanket as well, that they sent me some yarn in these colours. So what was I going to say? Yeah, the size of it is pretty good, I would say, for like a pram blanket or in the car. It's even a good size like for an adult just to have over your knees. If you find that you get a little bit chilly when you're watching TV or something like that, you know, it's not like having a huge blanket over you that you're having to fold multiple times just to stop it catching on stuff, or, you know, if you've got, I don't know, people sitting next to you even, you don't want to, because it's like that with my husband. I have a blanket on me in an evening most of the year. I just find it a comfort thing. My husband isn't like that. He feels the heat even more than I do. So yeah, it's, if I have my blanket going over onto him on an evening, he's like, get it off me. So yeah, I think this is a nice size, quite versatile really, and like I say, it also could be used as a baby blanket, so it's good as a gift to make as well. And this yarn, this is, I never actually told you what it was, but it's by Yarnsmiths again, and it's their Pebble Haze Prints DK, which comes in the nice cakes as well. And I used the shade Salterton. Yeah, because I keep getting that mixed up with another of their shades, but it is Salterton. And I liked how it's got the blues and pinks, and then the occasional pops of yellow as well. Thought that was really nice. Ooh, a pigeon just flew past and made me jump. Yeah, so I'm really happy with that. The yarn is lovely and soft. It's really nice. And like I say, it's got a good weight to it. This blanket is smaller than this one, but I would say they're either the same weight or this one is actually slightly heavier. in a good way. Like it's got that nice feel to it, quite substantial. And I thought that the stitch definition is really good. Like when you look at the edges there. I think the yarn is sort of one of those chainette ones, so it's, or I don't know if chainette's the right term actually, but it's the ones where the yarn is made a little bit airy, like a blown yarn maybe. And so it creates a really nice stitch definition. I'm pretty sure I could be describing this a lot better than I am, but yeah, hopefully you know kind of what I mean anyway. But it is really nice and I enjoyed making it. When I was making the pattern, I actually just sort of went with the flow a little bit. Just went with what I felt at the time. So I started with the granny square because I thought, yeah, I just want something mindless for the TV on an evening. And then as I was getting further out, I thought, oh, actually, what would be nice is adding these squares around the edge. And so I carried on with that. I took the what I felt like and I added it. So this is the latest blanket that I finished. And this is, there's a pattern called Starting with a Granny, I think. I will make sure of the pattern information and I'll put it on the screen as well, just to let you know a little bit more accurate information. So if it's on the screen, you know it's right because I've researched it and double checked it after I filmed the video. So yeah, the shawl pattern is called Starting with a Granny, and I've made this into a blanket instead because I like the idea of the shawl, but I don't really wear shawls that often. I've got one or two, but I don't really wear them that much. And I just love making blankets. They're like my favourite thing to make. So I adapted the pattern to make it into a blanket. I'm looking through one of the holes in the blanket to see that I'm showing you the blanket all right. Yeah, I really enjoyed making this. I've always liked the virus pattern, so that's what this is partly based on. I made a virus blanket a few years ago as a new baby gift, and I just really enjoyed it because it looks quite intricate, but it's very easy to get into the rhythm of it. You know which row you're on. It's quite clear in the pattern to remember what you're doing on each row. And then with this one, adding the stripes of granny clusters to it. I do love a granny cluster. Yeah, it just sort of like broke it up nicely, and I usually did the granny stripe part in a colour and then the virus blanket part in a neutral. I think I did that all the way through, yeah. Again, I just kind of went with my gut on which colour next. There isn't a particular... I've used these colours in a sequence, I guess, because I've gone from the teal to the sage colour, I think it's kind of like. Then back to the teal, then back to the sage, then back to the teal. But for the middle, for the virus blanket part, I did cream, silver, silver, and cream. So I just kind of, I think I was basing it on how much yarn I had as well. Making sure that I wouldn't run out on the last round or something. So this is again made with Yarn Smith's Create DK, and I originally got this yarn for making a blanket last year. I did start it, but it was a tapestry crochet pattern, and I had this dark teal, and I needed to do tapestry crochet with the silver, and the silver kept showing through the teal, and I was just too perfectionist, and I didn't want it to show through, because on the actual blanket pattern, either the yarn that she'd used or the hook size, I don't know what, her tension or something like that, meant that these stitches didn't show through, but they did with me, and I just didn't really like that. So once I've lost interest in a pattern like that, as in if I'm not happy with how I'm making it, I do kind of go off it, and I can't bring myself to work on it. So I did end up just frogging it. And the yarn stayed in my basket for quite some time, and I didn't really know what I wanted to make with it. I still really liked the colours, but there was no pattern that I had in mind that I wanted to do. So then I think it was after I'd finished this blanket that I wanted something a little bit more challenging, but not difficult, if that makes sense. Something where I was making an actual pattern and not just the granny squares all the time. That's an end I've missed. Oh no, there's an end I've missed, she says. There are no ends sewn in on this. Whoops. Yeah, it's the most recent one, so I haven't got round to sewing the ends yet. I don't mind sewing in ends. I find it quite relaxing, but with this one I was quite eager at the end to finish it because of my next project, which is my work in progress down there. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed making it. It got a lot of comments when I took it out to work on it at friends' houses and things. They all liked. I think it does look quite intricate, doesn't it? So it is quite eye-catching, but it's pretty easy. So I enjoyed that. All the colours so far of the things I've made are quite different, really. You know, I've gone from autumnal colours to quite soft pastel-y colours, and then back to brighter colours, but not. This is like more ocean themed. So yeah, we've got quite a few going on. And then this is my current project that I've been making. Let's just move that a bit closer. What I've been doing is, there's a lot of colours in this one, so they're in stripes, I'm doing them in colour blocks. So I tend to keep the current colour and 2 future colours in this bag. And then I know if I take it out with me, I've got plenty of time to work on it before I run out of yarn. So that is what I've been doing. Put that down there because it's still attached. This is the Sweet Pea blanket by Sweet Pea Family Crochet on Instagram, and I'll double check where I get the pattern from. I think it's Knitting Network. That sounds familiar. What I wanted with this blanket was, at first I was thinking of doing a ripple because I liked the idea of doing an ombre of colours, not an ombre. I don't know what it would be called, a blend, basically going from pinks through to purples, then into blues and greens. Or greens and blues, yeah, blues and greens. So I did think about doing a ripple, but I think when it came to it, I did start making the chain, and I think I started the first couple of rows. And it just wasn't. I love doing the ripple, but this time, oh, sorry about that. I just needed a drink. Yeah, I do love doing the ripple, but for some reason this time it just wasn't clicking. It wasn't feeling like it was the right pattern. So I got rid of that, frogged it back. And I wanted something. Then I was thinking of something with a little bit more texture, something where it's very easy to work on. For me, it's always TV crochet. So that's when I work on my crochet usually, is on an evening, we're watching TV, a film or something, and I don't want to be constantly reading a pattern all the time. In the daytime, if I have any time to sit down and do some crocheting, then that's the time I'll probably more likely use a more intricate pattern. But yeah, on an evening, that's when I want the simple stuff. So simple to follow, I mean. So I wanted something that had more texture and that I could still do in the colour blocks. And I decided on the Sweet Pea blanket. And this is where I am up to. Oh, my chair's creaky. So it starts with the light pink, goes slightly darker, then to dark pink, then to purple, as in a dark purple, then medium purple, a lilac, then goes through into blue, and then this is like an aqua colour, a light blue this is, and then aqua colour. And as you can see, like each section is different. In the pattern, it is written that the colour changes are done for you. So like it will say at the end of this row, change to colour B or anything like that. But I already knew that I wanted to do colour blocks. So I looked at how many rows there were in total in the blanket and then divided it by the number of colours that I had. And it worked out to 12 rows of each colour. And more or less, even though they're differing heights of stitch, sometimes they're single crochet, that's US, because I usually use US terms when I'm talking about it. That obviously is shorter, and then you've got the granny clusters, which are DCs in US terms. So it actually all works out to about the same height. I think this one is one of the shortest. I think it's when I did the chain, there were quite a few single crochet rows, so that made that a little bit shorter. But it's totally fine with me. I'm all right with that. And this one I think is one of the tallest. So I've just finished this aqua colour and about to move on to, I've got 4 colours left. Oh, I need to shut the window. Sorry about that. There was a chainsaw suddenly being used outside, so I had to shut the windows, which was a shame. I was enjoying listening to the birds and that, but never mind. Yes, I was showing you which colours I've got left. One. So I have these 4 colours left. That. So I'm going on to this one next, and then it fades through right down to the darkest colour. I think they're coming up fairly accurate on the video, so that's good. Yeah, and I've really enjoyed making this. I've been a little bit slower on it than I'd like to have been. Sometimes I'll take my crocheting out like on an evening. I'll get it out and I think, right, I'm going to have a lovely evening of doing all this, and then I get distracted with things, or I'm too tired, or I find that I've just not got the motivation to do it, so I do end up doing maybe like half a row, if that sometimes. I think last night I literally got this 1 row left of the granny stripe, and I find granny stripes really easy to do, mindless and enjoyable. And I think I only did half a row, but I did manage to finish the row, so I'm ready to start the next colour. And I just felt like putting a stitch marker on it, so a progress keeper rather. So I popped this little progress keeper, and this is a little cat in a teacup. It's a teacup, but it looks like maybe a matcha tea because it's green. That's just my observation. Yeah, so I am enjoying making this, and once I've finished the stripes, the colour blocks I mean, then there's the border as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the border that the original blanket had. I've not actually looked closely at the picture of the pattern to see if I like it for this, but I'm quite interested in doing a different kind of border anyway. I've got one in mind using like front post DCs, that's in US terms again. Yeah, that's what I've got in mind, because I've used that border before and I've really liked it, especially when there's quite a few colours. So I would go like through the colours again and add like a nice big border to it. So that is what I'm thinking. But you'll have to wait and see for the next episode as to whether that happened or what happened at all. And hopefully it won't be another year away. So I'm just going to pop these ones back into this bag like this. And then my plan with the leftover yarn, because it's not really using a huge amount, obviously I've got the border to go as well, which we'll use some as well. But I have, these are like the ones that I've used and put back in this bag. I do have quite a lot left, and I would like to make an African flower blanket. Like I say, there won't be as much yarn as that left after the border, so it would depend how much is left as to how big the blanket will be. But I've seen it recently, someone on Instagram was making an African flower blanket and I really liked it. And I've only ever made one. It's got to be 6 or 7 years ago. So that was the first one that I'd made, and I've not made one since then. And that was in pinks and cream, I think. But I quite like the idea of making a multicolour one, and either doing it as a colour wash. So I'd make a few squares of each and then gradually fade it down from one corner to the other, or random. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I like the idea of both. So I need to decide. But that's all my projects. The 3 blankets that I've made most recently, and my current blanket, and even a future project as well. Another thing that I would like to make, really like to make, I don't have the yarn or the pattern, so I can't show you anything, but there's a sweater shawl. I'll put a picture in here as well just to show you what I mean. But I really like the style of it, and I think it would be really nice in autumn. There's a knitted version, I think, and there's also definitely a crocheted version, and that's the one that I'm thinking of. And I love it. Whenever I see it on Instagram and it pops up, I want to make it. The crochet version would be quicker, I think. And it's with DK yarn again, so that would be fairly quick, because the one that I like the most of the knitted version is made in a very lightweight yarn, I think like lace weight, so that would take quite a long time for me to make. But yeah, I love it so much, and I really want to make one. So that is definitely, I think once I finish this blanket, I possibly won't move straight on to the African flower one, or I'll have that as a project that I take out with me. But I really want to make this other one. Sorry, I'm getting excited. I keep thinking about it, and like I say, it would be really good for autumn because you can wear it. I think it's either a sweater shawl or a sweater scarf that it's called officially. But you can wear it like a normal scarf under a coat or something, and then you can, if it's too warm for a coat but it's still quite chilly, then you can take the coat off, and then you put one sleeve on, wrap the shawl part around you, and then put the other sleeve on, and it creates a nice crossover shawl, almost like a wrap. And I just really like that style. I've seen it a lot before now, but for some reason it's really got my attention now. So yeah, I would like to do that.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Okay. The echo dot just woke up. I don't even know what I said. Anyway, yeah, so that's it, and I've shown you everything and future plans as well, and I would really hope to see you again really soon. Trying to get a bit more of I wouldn't say routine, because it does still depend on how many things I've got to show. Otherwise the video could be like 5 minutes long. I guess that's not too bad though, is it? There is also, I just remembered, these curtains that I've made. I've talked about them on Instagram, but I thought they are a finished project, so I will show you here as well. They are these curtains, and this is for my husband's shed. Well, it's our shed really, but it's got his work stuff in it, so it's basically his work shed. He's got like a huge IBC tank, which is 1,000 litres. He uses that for his window cleaning, so it makes pure water. The shed has a window on it, and our previous shed, we did have like the blackout paint on it, because we didn't need the light from the window. It was literally a storage shed. Whereas this one, he does have to go in there and like mess around with the equipment sometimes. He does need the light for that. And other times he needs no light in there, because if there's too much light, it could cause the tank to grow algae in it. So he asked me if I could make some little curtains. So I had this fabric, I've had this for ages, years and years. Originally I was going to make, I think, a dress with it. That never happened, and I still love the colours of it, but I don't think a small print is that flattering on me. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was the largest amount of fabric that I had in stock, so shall we say. I'm just going to move this one over here, and then I'll show you the other one, because they're both literally the same. So I made two. I could have made one just to have it like slide across, but I wanted it to be opened like the traditional curtains. And then I've done on the back a little pocket for a net rod. I was going along quite well, and then I did make a mistake, because it was on the first curtain that I made. I have done little bits of sewing before, but it has been a long time. I would say probably about a year since I've done any sewing, apart from, you know, like little alterations or something to my clothes or my husband's clothes. So I had really lost basically all my knowledge. It felt had dried up. So I clipped together the fabric, the front and the back for the lining. Sewed around the edges, left the gap in the middle. There was a little bit there. Left the gap in the middle for turning it round the right way. Even that didn't click. And then got to the point of turning it round, and I was like, oh, I've put the right side facing out, and I should have done it facing in, so that then you'd turn it the right way and it would hide all the raw edges. So I did the second one fine, because I knew I'd learnt from this mistake already. Thankfully, I didn't just go ahead and do them both like a production line. I basically did one to finish, and then finished the other one, like start to finish, I mean. Thankfully. Otherwise I might have made the same mistake twice. But yeah, I undid it with a seam ripper and just redid it. And thankfully the rest of it went quite smoothly. I managed to get the stitches fairly close to the edge. And I actually really enjoyed it. I think because it was such a nice simple pattern, I could just focus on getting used to the machine again and sort of getting techniques right. Putting the fabrics the right side together would be a good start. Even like threading the machine, it doesn't take long to do at all once I was used to it again. But I did have to, I always know how to do the thread from the top, but it's the bobbin, I always have to check which way the thread needs to come off the bobbin, and yeah. It was just good to like reteach myself a few techniques. And I did say about this on my Instagram, but my favourite bit is the turning gap where you close that up. I was happy that I managed to get both sides in, and I didn't miss the yarn. I didn't miss the fabric. And I managed to get it really close to the edge. I used to do overlocking as a job, but I didn't use cotton fabric like this where it has virtually no stretch. I used cashmere wool basically. So it was very stretchy, and there was always like a bit of a leeway. If you made a slight mistake, like it was slightly too short, you could make adjustments so that it was fine. Whereas like with the cotton, I thought that I'd cut the pieces out exactly the same, the front and the lining, I mean. But when I was sewing it together, there was parts where there was too much lining and I had to trim the edge. So yeah, it was, even that is a bit of a learning curve because it's just not the type of fabric that I'm used to using. I got very used to using an industrial overlocker and I could go really fast on it. But yeah, now I'm getting faster with the sewing machine again if it's something simple. So yeah, that is it. And that is literally all of the projects that I've got to show you. So I will say goodbye and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye!